Welcome to Resilience Gone Wild. I'm here with my amazing producer, Kai, and we are just getting super excited about the conversation that we just had with Dr. Phil Richmond, and we can't wait for you to hear it.
That's putting it lightly. I think the conversation you guys had was so incredible, so insightful, so many things like hit home with me, and I know will hit home with so many listeners out there. You know, Dr. Phil's journey through substance abuse, his suicidal ideation, the work he does in the vet community on helping get tools, as he put it, to veterinarians, because it's not this wonderful, you know, sunshine and rainbows gig that I think a lot of us think it is. It's very difficult. It's long hours, and you're dealing with, you know, highly emotional moments. So it was just fascinating to hear his story, his perspective, and really this idea of like how we can relate to even canines. You know, the episode prior was all about gators, right? But his ideas about what he sees in the clinic when it comes to dogs and how they control their breathing.
Was that the coolest thing? Like to be able to watch the way their hearts and their breathing connect.
Yeah.
In real time, and
right.
You know, with a technology that's giving that example. That
right.
He can teach new veterinarians to like manage their own stress through watching how a dog manages theirs.
And again, and it's this great, beautiful metaphor that we're all about, right? That the intense power of thought can truly control our bodies, and it's something we can learn from nature and the animal kingdom. So, you know, I think let's get to the interview. Sound good?
Awesome. Thanks.
All right.
So welcome, Phil Richmond. Phil is an award-winning, joyful veterinarian who founded Flourishing Phoenix Veterinary Consultants, where he and the organization advocate for positive culture and individual, team, and organizational psychological health, safety, and well-being in veterinary workplaces. He was awarded the FVMA Gold Star for service in 2019, the FVMA Veterinarian of the Year in 2021, and received the Uncharted Veterinary Communities Founders Award in 2023. So welcome to the podcast, Phil. Welcome to Resilience Gone Wild. And I'm so excited to be here with you and reconnect. Phil and I met while we were studying positive psychology together a few years ago, and he's one of the most inspiring, passionate, purposeful, and generous people I know. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights and your wisdom and your love of people and nature and its resilience. So, Phil, tell us about yourself.
Oh, thank you, Jessica. And it's so exciting to be here with you, and like the journey, knowing, you know, from the time that we met and we connected and we were in class together, and then seeing the journey that you've been on and creating all this, it's wonderful. I got the goosebumps,
thank you
already doing that. So, but yes, I mean, it's just, you know, it's always interesting. It's like, well, why in the heck is a veterinarian, you know, or why do any of us do well-being? And, you know, what really happened to me, and just, you know, quick and impactful and succinct as I can make this, and I am going to talk about suicidal ideation, and you know, alcohol and substance use disorder, is that's really what my journey was. Is about a year and a half into practice. You know, I had one tool in the toolbox. I didn't have skills of resiliency. You know, I had alcohol and substances to try to change and throttle the way that I felt, and address, you know, anxiety and the you know, that hamster wheel thought process
you were numbing
that I had
instead of
right,
solving.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And so it got to a point about a year and a half into practice where, you know, the perfectionism, the burnout, you know, the workaholism, you know, being a workaholic, came to a point where I got home from work. I had my backpack on. I put my backpack down. I sat down on my couch. You know, and I'm a young veterinarian, and I'm just like, I can't do this for another 20 years. And I had a plan for ending my life. And, you know, I was like, if A, B, or C happens, you know, I'm gonna, you know, I had a plan. And thank goodness what happened is the people that I worked with recognized what was going on with me, got me the help that I needed. And I ended up going into a treatment center, which as a young veterinarian, as a professional, is scary, potentially shouldn't be, but, you know, shame and guilt filled. Yeah. And the journey ended up, and this is why I love, you know, what you're doing and talking about resiliency, is one of the most impactful things that I learned was I got a toolbox, of skills of resiliency. And that helped save my life, one. And two, helped me really love veterinary medicine again, and to go in and find ways to be in this challenging environment and see what part I was playing in it, but then also what some of the external, factors were, and finding the balance between those. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a very sadly unknown fact that we all think our veterinarians are like these joyful, caring, like easygoing, just loving people who have this perfect life of getting to interact with their purpose every minute of the day. But the mental health challenges for veterinarians are, the data shows it's staggeringly difficult.
Yeah.
So, you're representing that voice and making such an impact on helping to break the stigma and to bring the toolbox, to create opportunity for people to get off that couch and live again is just such a gift to everyone. So thank you. And thank you for sharing your story. That was vulnerable, and we all appreciate it.
Thank you.
So to that end, we're talking about breathing, and we're talking about intentional breathing and what we can do to take care of our bodies so that we can get through the challenges that are going to come every minute, every day, to bumps in the road to all of us, and to how to manage, helping that through our bodies, and how incredibly the animal kingdom, and I'm sure the plant kingdom, does these exercises as well, has these tools. So what comes up for you around that?
Yeah, so breathing, definitely one of the things that, not just from, what's always fascinating, let me say this, is the wisdom of the ages, and then that gets backed up, as we have more tools and as we have more knowledge, that gets backed up by science and, and evidence. And when we talked a little bit about it before we started started going live, but breathing, such a fundamental way for us to throttle down the stress response. And so what's fascinating is that when we hear about breathing, we talk about, the vagal nerve and stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system and all these, these bigger terms. And what is exciting is, as a veterinarian, is that dogs, you can see that reflected on their EKG, on their electrocardiogram, the blip, 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 blip. When they're under anesthesia, or even if they're not, but certainly when they're under anesthesia and we're monitoring them for surgical procedures, when they take a breath and when they don't, the speed of the heart changes, the speed of the rhythm changes, because of the impact that breathing has on the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's actually easier for me as a veterinarian to be able to teach breathing maybe not easier, but I have a tool in the toolbox that every veterinary professional that monitors anesthesia, that monitors canines, dogs under anesthesia, I can go, what's that called? Respiratory sinus arrhythmia. Why does it happen? Because they're, when they breathe in, sympathetic nervous system goes up. When they breathe out, the vagal. And I'm like, we do the same thing. What? And
right?
so we can tap into that. Right.
We do the same thing as
we do the same
kingdom.
thing.
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm thinking? Like, what's coming to mind is just such a cool picture of you're teaching breathing and stress relief exercises around that by having veterinary, I don't know if you did this or not, I'm just imagining, like, having them breathe along with the dog. Like, take the same calming breath as the dog, because you see how it slows your heart. Like, it's like so in your face how effective it is. Like, this isn't just like hooey that's out there that some neurologist or a neuroscientist figured out. Like, it's in front of your face. It's right there. Look at it.
Right. And I mean, certainly there's like the Aura ring, and there's other, there's other ways to, to monitor it. And then, I know that there's, all kinds of monitors, and, now the term escapes me, but when we're basically trying to have our average heart rhythm down, what is the term?
Two resilience teachers can't come up with this term. So.
It's yeah, and I can picture the person to call who does that I know that does all this stuff. But
Would
anyway,
it happen to be bradycardia?
Bradycardia is at a slower heart rate, but it's not. It's a great point, Kai, but it's not the one that I'm thinking of. Which is there's a whole study of essentially our goal is to get it's that we don't have huge jumps in our heart rhythm. Like we don't want to have huge spikes where we have tachycardia, versus, bradycardia. We want to try to have, more of a consistent heart rate through the day. And what that means is that if we can do that, it means that generally speaking, we're not having as many stressful events and that kind of thing. Yeah.
And to that end, the stress. Thank you, Kai.
Yeah.
You set him
Thank
off
you.
on a direction.
Yes, on a rabbit hole.
Producer role check. I'll chime in maybe 5 minutes.
No. But to that end, it's interesting because it's so important, and just as a related topic, like to manage your body so you don't go through these high-low stress reactions, like to just, I think of it in terms of like a diabetic who's trying not to have these big swings in their sugars. It's the same thing in your heartbeat and the way your muscle of your heart stays healthy by not having these huge swings, except when you intentionally do it with, certain exercises or whatever to get the exercise. But you want to go run with that because you probably teach something in this realm.
Well, and so also using, in the spirit of using animals, as guides is there's a whole area. And so I guess transparency. So I do speak for this group, but it's a good group. It's called Fear Free. But essentially just even not necessarily fear free, but just canine behavior. Like when pets come into the clinic, domestic pets come into the clinic, they have certain things that they do in body language and things that we can see that we know that their sympathetic nervous system is getting stimulated and they're getting more anxious and more fearful,
panting or whatever,
panting, tail down, seeing body language, kind of crouching down, versus the ones where they're engaged, just like us, both of we're leaning in and we're talking or we're getting excited but versus kind of, coming back and being more introverted and isolated and looking for protection. And so we also do those things. And but it's like, it can be a little bit different, on an individual basis. So can we, and this goes along with it, can we be mindful and aware of what are the physical manifestations of that in my body when I feel those stress responses? So then I know, this is happening now. I can have some awareness of it in the moment. And now what tools do I have in the toolbox?
Yeah. And I'm so happy you brought that up because it's so directly about what I'm trying to offer here, which is that we are so in line with using the metaphor of these animal examples. So like if you feel like your body's out of control and there's something going on, picture the dog going from a stress place to a non-stress place and what would take for that dog to get there. I wanted to throw something out at you, which is I had heard recently that I thought was really cool. And I'm like, oh, when do I get to throw this into an interview? It's just in terms of the reactions that our bodies have that we can relate to animals, or we need to confront shame and turning red, like blushing, is something only humans do.
Only humans do.
Right? And that's something that, you've brought up in terms of stigma and that, subtly a couple of times already. Like, what are your thoughts on managing the stress around that?
Yes. So I think the thing that was most powerful, and I know we learned this, in our original CAP class, that was just something that really
wait. CAP is Certificate in Applied Positive Psychology.
Sorry. Yes. From the Flourishing Center. Great. I love that. I mean, just a great course. I mean, I just love the course. And had I not done that course, I wouldn't have gotten to meet Jessica either, because we met in the consultant course, I think later. Yeah.
Yep. And by the way, just as an aside, Amelia is the guest on the first podcast interview.
Oh,
yeah. So
that. How awesome.
Life is
How
good.
Awesome. But so as we're getting instruction, from Amelia in the, in the videos, one of the things that has always stuck with me, as one of those aha moments, was that there is an 88% overlap in what I picture. I use my senses to bring in and find an idea of what's going on versus what I imagine in my head. Essentially meaning there's no my brain can't tell the difference whether it's actually happening or I'm imagining and it's happening. And just the intense power of my thought to create a situation that my body responds to as though I'm getting chased by a tiger.
Change your story, change your life, right? So
100%.
whatever story is in your head.
Said thousands of different ways over the years, over the millennia, the Stoic philosophers, have talked about that for years. I mean, Shakespeare, talks about it, nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so, and that, and to that degree is just how much our thoughts play a role in resilience. And so I would say for me specifically, for me personally, we teach what impacts us most. That was one of the first things that I taught, was challenging my thinking. Was learning how to ask myself, like, is that true? Is this valid? And that has been very helpful for me, and the people that I've had the opportunity to work with over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the most important resiliency tools there is out there.
Yeah.
To recognize that the story is much of it made up, because we are a storytelling brain, and we fill in the gaps to create a story, because that's how we remember things and that's how we think. So to challenge whether all the pieces of that story, how many of them are actually true?
Right.
And how many of them are creating a problem for you?
Right. And then Jessica, here's the thing. So I mentioned, so I'm in long-term recovery, as well. And so some of the wisdom I got was from 12-step recovery. And so what we do is we go through, basically you go through your entire life and you look at all the resentments that you have against people. And there was one common denominator in all of those horrible resentments, and it was me. And so what was bananas is when I really saw that I could have misinterpreted one thing, and to your point, filled in the blanks with something else. And then I took action on that. I took action towards another person. That person then took action towards me, and it spiraled downward because of one misinterpretation
assumption
I made. One assumption. Right. My father used to have some very colorful ways of describing assuming things, which I won't share here.
We all
but
have pieces of that,
right.
And those are the stories, right? Like that's the part we remember.
Yeah.
Who knows how much of that was fully the reality, but that's what the story is in our head, and that's what matters right now to challenge it.
Yeah. And it's still, and I'll say it's a work in progress. I mean, I still do it. I mean, it's just, that's the thing, is I have tools, that can help me combat it, but I can get down down that rabbit hole, as much as anybody. But the good news is today, I don't tend to stay there, nearly as long, and to the level that I did where, my heart rate was up all the time because I was just, this person, this, and this. And then, and I be driving somewhere. And by the time I got there, it was World War III in my head. Yeah.
I mean, you made many really important points, and one of them that's coming through for me is just the really vital recognition that we don't become resilient in a second. We don't pick up tools and just have them. That it's a lifelong process of growth and improvement, so that we can manage our lives in a happier way and a more balanced way, and gaining little bits of tools along the way and building them up into this toolbox is great. But people who've gotten to a point where they've confronted such a low point that they've gone to a formal sort of recovery gives them permission, you and others permission, to say, you know what, I'm on a long-term recovery. This is what life is, and I need to keep working on it. But the rest of the world who isn't owning that change is necessary to live life better and growth is necessary, the lesson here that's so important is we all need to do this. You know, you've taken on a formal mechanism, and I'm offering, you know, as are you, you know, formal-ish ways to join us and grow with us with building these tools, and that it's a lifelong practice. And best case, we teach others. You know, you learn from us, and then you share it, and the next person is stronger and healthier and more balanced. Like, it's a beautiful world.
And that's it,
ripples.
right? It's this beautiful, you know, force multiplier, or you know, the positive ripple effect, you know, that's talked about in positive psychology, and and it's actually that I just got off a meeting with the FVMA, and that's where we've got this whole well-being. It made me think again. The ADHD is like, that's literally one of the big aspects of the program, is empowering groups of well-being champions, like people that have a desire to help the profession, to give them tools to do that, and then they go out, you know, and be able to, they do this work themselves, but then they go out and you know, and try to help others. And to your point is that's the goal. I mean, that's the vision of, what was it, 2025, you know, is that what 51% would be flourishing, or so.
That's right.
Marty
Do you
Seligman
remember
had said.
those numbers? I haven't seen them in a while.
I
Do you wanna
I don't.
explain what you just said, because it's actually really powerful.
Oh, I probably shouldn't even said it, because I could pay. But there was a goal that, so there are certainly different ways of measuring. There's a couple different ways to measure flourishing, and the problem is I don't remember what the initial one was, but it was that people that are truly flourishing, say in the PERMA model, which is positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning and purpose, achievement and accomplishment, and health, or vitality, PERMA H or PERMA V, depending on. But that only, and I'm arbitrarily throwing a number out here, that I think it was like 20%, you know, of
I
the
remember something
population
like
was
that, yeah.
flourishing, something like that.
Yeah.
And that Marty Seligman, Dr. Martin Seligman, the father of modern positive psychology, or founder of modern positive psychology, said the goal was, I think 51 or 50% by 2050. You know, is that can we get these tools out into everyone's hands, you know, to create a level of flourishing. So yeah.
I have to say, I don't know if you've, we haven't talked about this. I don't know if you've seen recent work by Michael Steger, that he threw out 50 years into positive psychology. And that's why I think the date was set. It was like 95, it was 30 years in. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Kai, you'll cut this, right? So anyway.
Maybe. I'm having a good time. I'm also trying to find the PERMA 50. Is it PERMA 51? Is that the...
No, PERMA and PERMA V. It's PERMA,
okay.
which is the basic model that Marty Seligman came up with. And Amelia added the V, and the version is either vitality or health. And they're both out there.
And there's now, there's even PERMA +4 now, which adds growth, I think growth mindset, financial.
Oh, okay.
And some other.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Everybody wants to have
there's
their mark on it,
permutations,
right?
but the core of it is the PERMA. You know,
So-
nobody.
So the recent work that I've been reading about it aligns very well with what my whole purpose is, which is that in these years of positive psychology where we've been focusing on individual happiness, the end result has been such a self-focus as opposed to community focus and ripple focus and world focus, that we are so obsessed with me. Like, we had this me generation for a little while, but now it's gotten way worse than just the me generation, and that we need to shift the work we're doing to really focus on how our behavior impacts others. Because it all, as you said, it's all cyclical. Like, it's coming back. Like, you and the person that you hurt or harmed, or whatever the right terminology is, it spiraled, right? Like, it wasn't just one direction. It comes back, and it comes around and around and around, and it flows to everybody else who's in that, in that world. So we need to pay attention to, if we feel ourselves, for example, in a small example, with this high stress reaction, that we've got the story in our head, we've got fear, we've got anger, we've got, negative emotion. Our heartbeat is racing, or, like an animal species from some fear or whatever's going on. And if we stop and we actually stop for a moment and say, okay, how is this affecting me and what can I do about it? And how is this affecting all the people around me? And is this good? Or how can I fix this?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
And I'm reminded of I'm probably Kyle fact check it, but it's something to the effect, and it's is that the antidote to fear is grounded hope.
Yes,
and
the antidote to fear is hope. It was Maya Angelou, I think.
Yeah.
I just read it the other day. Maybe I got it
Yeah.
quoted wrong, but yeah.
And that's really it, is that, and it's not to say that we don't always look at the bright side, but that we honor that it can be there, is that we're not, it's not toxic, right. It's not toxic positivity. And it's funny because in vet med, well, just in vet med, because we're human beings like everyone else, but is that gets thrown around, that toxic positivity. And it's like, not all positivity is toxic positivity, is that it's not, is honoring that if you're always, shooting something down as being toxic positivity, potentially we might want to turn the lens in on ourselves and say, why is it that, and we can, let me say this, we can wrap it in, well, I'm pragmatic, and it's like, yes, but we can be, a realistic optimist. That's what I.
Yes.
That's what I like to describe myself. I forget where I heard that first.
Yeah,
but,
I like that.
A realistic optimist, is not always looking at the bright side or always simple. But it's like I always give it that. Hey, what if what if this too happens?
I think I found the quote. If I could throw it at you guys.
Oh, yes,
go for it.
please.
All right,
sling it.
What is a fear of living? It's being preeminently afraid of dying. It is not doing what you came here to do out of timidity and spinelessness. The antidote is to take full responsibility for yourself, for the time you take up and the space you occupy. If you don't know what you're here to do, then just do some good.
I like that.
So
and
it's
was
beautiful.
that Maya Angelou?
Yes, that was Maya Angelou.
Yes. Okay.
It wasn't the quote. I mean, it was the same realm, but somebody actually did say the antidote.
All right, well, I fact-checked the Maya Angelou version.
Okay.
So that's awesome. And that's the language that's out there that we need, right? Like we need to read that fear is real and that we shouldn't deny. We should try to understand where it's coming from and then look for opportunity for hope instead of fear and stress, right? Like, so don't
and if I
walk
may,
away
like,
from
which
it.
is not my skill at all, is I want to wrap this into like what we're talking about, going back to animals and this and that is the beautiful difference physiologically, or what the tool that we have is that fear does play a role. Fear can keep us alive. Fear, just like it does with animals and why they have the fear response. But knowing that optimism, again, that skill of realistic optimism, depending on the model you look at for resiliency, that is a skill of resiliency, is to be able to honor that something good might, be able to happen as well. And that is something that I can't teach my, my canine and feline patients, but I can, positive, give them positive reinforcement and that type of thing. But it's just, I think that's really a powerful tool, is what is one of the ways that we can combat fear, is hope and optimism. Yeah.
The word intentionality is coming up for me, which is a very positive psychology sort of term and resiliency term. But that's what's coming out, is that we as humans can learn from the ancient wisdom of the animal kingdom and then do it intentionally. Not wait to evolve and adapt to change around us, but to stop and dig out a tool and be intentional about changing the thoughts, changing the behavior, changing the breathing, changing, every aspect that we have control over as humans that canines and don't know that they have that control of.
Well, and I guess I didn't give canines nearly enough credit. I don't know that cats would, they're always the joke about cats, but that I come in from a day that's horrible, and these dogs go bananas
with love.
They're happiest with love, right? Yeah. Pure love. And that what's beautiful too is that we've shown now over the years the level of emotions that dogs can exhibit, and really, number of mammals as well. Yeah. And I will also say, as birds, like I didn't like I was like, we're never having birds. There's just never. In January of 2022, we had none, and then I'll say we have. Geez, I don't know, 27 birds now, I think.
No, in
so
your house?
They're not all pet. We have we have an aviary too, but we went from no birds to we have two conures, two caiques, a military macaw, and a cockatoo, and an umbrella cockatoo. And I just didn't have. In fact, I think when we were in class together, I don't know that I had them then.
No, it was before 2022. That's amazing.
But the level. So even with the avians, like the level of emotion, like the level of connection that they can, I just didn't know that was, and I'm a veterinarian, and I'm like embarrassed to say, like I spent, 40 something years of my life discounting birds.
Right. Well,
and
we all
to
did.
know the level of connection that you could have.
I read a lot of behavioralists whose job it is, like that they've taken on their role of exposing the sentience and emotion and the capacity of a broad swath, not just primates and not just mammals, of the animal kingdom that's able to, and even the plant world, like that reacts to energy, right?
Yes.
And not just sun, but like different types of energy. So, I spend a chunk of my time in the marine life world, and I've learned about the emotional connection and the individual personalities of fish, water-based reptiles, turtles, like all of it. Like we have underestimated and fought. I could go into all kinds of, other directions on this, given my other interests in philosophy and social justice and all that. But we have shut off intentionally, we've shut off buying into the equality of emotion and sentience of non-humans. And we're breaking that, so that you went through vet school probably when that wasn't bought into. And we've learned that in the last, just a couple of decades. There's been so much information about why it matters that we're all in this world together, and that we all have emotion and nervous systems and on all the same organs, We are heading towards the end of this conversation, and I want to offer you, Phil, tell us what you want us to know. What do the listeners need to hear?
So I think, as far as one thing is, to your point in the beginning, is as far as veterinarians and, what we may, if we're not in the profession, what we may see, I think there's two schools of thought that's important to just be aware of. One is there's the James Herriot, version of veterinary medicine, which is quite honestly still a very big, powerful driver, of values and that type of thing for us. And then combining that with the realism of today's level of veterinary medicine, which is that there are things that we have the ability to do in veterinary medicine that are on par with human medicine, but people's value systems are very different. And some people, which I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but some people would say, well, I would just never spend that, type of, money on an animal, where some people are, it doesn't matter, I will go into,
it's family,
it's family. Right. And and it's challenging as veterinarians because all of those are valid, but we have to navigate that in a way, and that realizing that we do go through a lot, and that there isn't I will say this as a bold statement, there isn't a veterinarian in the US or on this planet that got into this because we wanted to make a ton of financial resources. Like we didn't go to school for 8 to 12 years. Right. We all did it because we wanted to help animals, and in one way or another. And so just saying that, like, I have a sign. Well, we probably won't be able to see it, but I have a sign from, it's in my office, says "Be curious, not judgmental," from Walt Whitman, but also made popular from the wonderful TV show Ted Lasso.
I love
It's
it.
just, is being open that person that's, in the exam room with you wants to help you and your pet, and as much as you love your pet, they really want to help them. And so, just cognitive empathy, like being able to put, and this is the same thing that I teach on the other side to our veterinary professionals, is understanding what our pet owners are going through too, and then just being, how can we be of service to them? We're unfortunately we have one of the highest risks of suicide in any profession, and so just as we would with anybody else, just a little bit of grace, a little bit of empathy, and in that as we move forward.
And it really thank you for offering that. And I've had such positive experiences with the veterinarians I've worked with over the years, with my own pup, and with this turtle hospital that I spend a lot of time. I spend a lot of my time in, and the respect and consideration for this ripple of energy is just all we're asking for, right? Like, if you just, it's so hard when you're dealing with, a sick family member, or the choice and the difficult choice to spend the money or not spend the money, or do the, those are decisions that are really hard. Do I do the work? But to just bring it into a sense of community, that the people in the room are on your side, and you all move together in this decision, that we all want to help each other, and to recognize that we're all in things in the world together, and you're not alone. It's like when you were sitting on the couch and you felt alone, and then you weren't alone because you were with your community who was helping you. Like, it's always the case. There's always other people in the game, and just accept them and bring them into your circle, and in positive energy, and it changes everything. Awesome. So tell us a couple of things you're working on that you want to share, that whoever's listening can, whether they're vets or they're not vets, I don't know if they're, so sure.
Yes. So, a few things. So one, I'm very excited. So we were releasing, in just a month or so, we were talking about PERMA, the PERMA tool for veterinary workplaces.
Wow.
So it's a comprehensive assessment on individual, team, and organizational level well-being, psychological health and safety, psychological safety and positive leadership in veterinary workplaces, and then giving leaders and individuals the tools, to improve those things in veterinary workplaces. So super, super excited about that. Actually partnering with Michelle McQuaid, Marty Sukja, and the Wellbeing Lab and the Good Foundry to put that out. Really excited.
Which is really cool, because they're in Australia, so you've got like
They're in
this
Australia,
global
right.
reach. Like, this isn't just
it's
America.
Super cool.
This is,
Yeah. And then I was really grateful. I was a co-author very recently on a big project from a group called Veterinary Visionaries. So it has all the, most of the schools and most of the veterinary organizations in the U.S. Are all part of this. But we put out as one of three co-authors and 4 co-authors on a paper for psychological health and safety guidelines for veterinary hospitals. So, things that can do that. And then the FVMA, Florida Veterinary Medical Association, we have our well-being program. We partnered with Blue Buffalo, which is amazing. And then we've got veterinary-informed mental health professionals to help for the mental health aspect. Actually, you'll appreciate this. It's the red cape, green cape thought exercise. So we're hoping to give another option to address mental health issues in the profession. And then we're training a cadre of really involved well-being veterinarians and veterinary professionals that have an interest in well-being, giving them those tools to then go out and create that positive ripple effect with their impact projects, as well as a number of other things kind of ancillary to that we're doing. But those are kind of the two big big things. And, there's a big group of people working on this, and it's just beautiful to see the energy. So thank you.
You thank you for sharing that. And I'm so excited for all of these amazing paths that you're generously putting forth for making the world better. And it reminds me of, how important it is to take all of this learning and start it earlier. So, you've moved down to the vet school level where you're bringing this into who you are, that you become as a vet, not just that you have to learn how to do it after you're already suffering. But to start out by saying, these are some of the challenges, and this is fill your toolbox now because you're going to need it. And then even I would think to bring it down to, preschool, children's level, where you're having these
Absolutely.
relationships at that level with both animals and animal professionals. Thank you, Phil. You have made my day and my week and my life better. And thank you for making so many people's lives better.
No.
You're a really special person, and I'm just so privileged to have you in my life. So, and now you're in all these other people's lives. So thank you for coming.
And it's beautiful thinking of how we came together and being able to come back together after this time and seeing how you've impacted the world and getting to meet Kai. And so thank you so much.
And more to come. You know what?
Yeah,
We'd love to have you back. So next time we'll go even deeper on some of these cool things. Thank you, Phil.
Sounds good.
Awesome. See you soon.
This has been a production of BLI Studios, produced by me, Kai. Follow along with our other BLI produced shows at balancinglifesissues.com/podcast-BLI. Got an idea for the show? Email me, Kai, at balancinglifesissues.com. And don't forget to stay in touch with your host, Jessica, at jessica@winwinwinmindset.com. Anything else to add, Miles?
Yeah.